Hi there. Further to my observations on the Church of Nowhere and its relationship possibly with the B66 or Aleister Crowley, one of the things I like about him, and this is a sort of relevance really to modern times, is that well, for the start, I rather like looking through, a coal pit in order to find the nugget of gold. So, when somebody who's mostly talking rubbish hits upon something which is of great wisdom, then I get quite excited by that. So, generally speaking, I'm the sort of person that looks for the good and the bad. But unfortunately, I also look for the bad and the good because I don't really trust the good. So obviously, I've got authority issues somewhere along the line there, and so that's one thing. But the other thing is the thing about narcissism and insecurity. I mean, you almost feel like forgiving somebody for being insecure because we live in a world where surely insecurity is a natural feeling that arises from the fact that we have such a fragile grip on reality and on our well-being, considering nature, the power of nature is arrayed against us on balance, and so therefore you have to sort of somehow forgive insecurity in people, and then as far as narcissism is concerned, and this is why I think Donald Trump is popular, is because he wears his narcissism on a sleeve. A lot of people, and myself included, are actually very egotistical people. We're just as narcissistic and egotistic as Crowley and Donald Trump, who could be described as the Donald Trump of the occult world. And we have ego. All right, I'm an egotistical person, and this arises from insecurity. All right, but it's still egotism. It's just I have layers and layers of humility, so called. Sort of, I'm surrounded my ego with layers of humility and self-deprecation even, and looking myself in a balanced kind of way, and so many people, and especially professional politicians, are like it. They pretend they're such humble people, and but they're tartuffes really. They are humbug, because at the center of them is as much ego as Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is just more honest about it. So he's kind of like the honest naughty person, the honest egotist, which, as I say, and he makes most of the stuff he says is rubbish. He's a bit like the coal bunker of egotism, but then you find somewhere in the midst of it that the gold nugget of wisdom and non-ego, and that somehow means a lot more to me personally, and a lot more to other people, than a good person who turns out to be rather less good than you expected. So it's almost like the gap between expectation on one hand and reality on the other. And where that gap is small, then we don't become stressed. Where that gap is large between expectation and reality, then we tend to complain and become stressed and resentful. So in a sense, what you see is what you get with Donald Trump and Aleister Crowley. And they don't pretend to be anything other than narcissistic and insecure and egotistical and even destructive and even self-destructive and even self-pawning, as the modern parlance goes. They shoot themselves in the foot very often. But on one hand, but at least they do it in an honest way, whereas the sort of Obamas of this world are called a sort of slimy, good people that have ego, and have ambition and avarice and aggression in them, but they sort of cover it all up in layers of sort of well-meaning, well-intentioned language, which actually isn't worth the paper it's written on. Or when they write their speeches, it's actually, it doesn't mean a thing. And I think a lot of people picked up somewhere along the line that Democrats in general are dishonest people. Dishonest not in terms that they take money, it's not about money. They're dishonest in themselves. They have no integrity. They have no they have no real sense of humility. And if you look hard enough, within the goodness of their hearts, you can find evil. But I mean that also, I think, finding the bad in the good is over judgmental. I mean, it shows that you haven't grasped the principle of forgiveness, for example. Almost like you're looking for people's faults. And you're sort of like a Sun journalist. You're looking for people's addictions. You're looking for their peccadillos. You're looking for something that you can take somebody down with, and it's almost like, whereas maybe you should be looking at people that have issues and problems, and trying to find what is good and uplifting about the people that don't seem to be very good or uplifting people generally. So we should be looking at the bunker and trying to find the gold nugget inside the coal bunker, rather than trying to find the coal in the palace of gold. Do you know what I mean? The piece of gold, a piece of coal that's dirtying the nice gold in the palace. Um, but anyway, so that's just really, and I think it's relevant to the Church of Nowhere, because the Church of Nowhere could actually have this as one of their objectives, to say to people, don't put people down. Look for what is good in the person, and kind of show the person themselves what good they are, and what good they could become, or what good that they could actually do. And that they're not all bad. They're not the naughtiest boy in the school, or the most corrupt politician that's ever been. That they have something to contribute to society, despite their issues of narcissism and insecurity. And I think a lot of people, they tend to cut Donald Trump, for example, a lot of slack, perhaps more slack than he actually deserves, because of this, really. But I also think that one of the problems with regard to Donald Trump, and a lot of people in the public eye, is that honestly, nobody actually discusses the policies of politicians, the policies of a particular church, or even the beliefs of a celebrity. They just go for the gossip. They just go for the trivial. He said that, she said that, he said, and all this kind of stuff. And no discussion is actually had of what the people are actually doing on the practical level, or not doing on the practical level. So, for example, with Donald Trump, you could discuss his policies, you could discuss what he's doing in the Oval Office, and you could discuss what he's not doing, and criticize him on that basis, rather than on the basis of some telephone conversations or Twitter storms, or something he said to a journalist or didn't say to a journalist, or something he said to somebody and didn't say, which is neither here nor there, and is total rubbish, really. And if you're trying to get somebody into a court of law to face charges of whatever, you've got to have a lot of evidence and amass a lot of evidence before you actually start throwing accusations around. I mean, I don't like Donald Trump. I'm only just saying that, have a bit more common sense before you start mischief making, and causing trouble for somebody in the public eye, and you don't even really know that person at all. But so I suppose the Church of Nowhere wants to make people more honest, I suppose. I mean, question authority, but also be prepared to see good sides where they are. Even if you have to search around for the good side of somebody, or the good side of some situation or institution, it's a nice thing to do, and congratulate people on the good that they do, rather than keep on judging their iniquities or their failures. So you might actually get a better response or more social evolution if you were more positive about criticism of people rather than just negative, destructive criticism. So I suppose if the Church of Nowhere was going to do anything, to change people's attitudes, it would be that it would be looking for the coal, looking for the gold nugget in the coal bunker, rather than the piece of coal in the gold palace kind of thing, because it's easy to find dirt and dirt and excrement in a palace of gold. It's not so easy to find the gold nugget within the coal bunker, if you see what I mean. You might have to do a bit more rooting about, a bit more work, in a sense. So it's easier to take somebody down who's in the public eye than see the good side of somebody. That's all I just want to say, really, with regard to this, and the fact that some people, are very dishonest also about their egotism, about their insecurity, and I don't know whether those people are in sort of inferior, in quotes, to the people that wear their problems on their sleeve, as it were, wear their egos on their sleeves, and are outrageously egotistical. I don't know, because the trouble is that the people that are outrageously egotistical could also be hiding some kind of dualism between humility and egotism. They could be actually more egotistical than they make out, and all this sort of this sort of frat boy kind of egotism that they wear on their sleeve is in fact covering up a greater egotism and a greater cunning, if you like. And they're actually not as nice people as they seem to be. So you can look at someone and they appear not to be very nice, and they wear their iniquities on their sleeve, but in actual fact they're actually worse than what they are wearing on their sleeve. So it's complicated, and you can't generalize. You've got to look at each case on its own merits. But generally speaking, positivity mixed with caution is probably what the Church of Nowhere would want to cultivate within its members, if indeed it has any members, which in fact it doesn't have any members.